At some point today, or maybe tomorrow, your body is going to do something strange. Your diaphragm will spasm. Your throat will snap shut. You'll make a sound you can't control and can't stop. You'll call it a hiccup. You won't think twice about it. But what's actually happening in that half second has nothing to do with anything you eat or drink or how fast you swallowed your lunch. It's older than that. Older than lungs, older than trees. And your body has never once let go of it.
To understand why, you have to go back further than humans, further than mammals, back to a time before any animal had lungs at all, when the only way to breathe was through gills, pulling oxygen straight from water. Paleontologist Neil Shubin has spent decades studying exactly this kind of transition, how ancient fish slowly evolved the structures that would eventually become lungs, limbs, and everything else that let life crawl out of the water. And somewhere in that transition, a very specific reflex got wired into the nervous system, a reflex for closing off the airway and pushing water back out through the gills.
That reflex didn't disappear when gills did. It got repurposed. Physiologist Christian Straus has studied the hiccup reflex directly, tracing its circuitry through the brainstem and a nerve called the phrenic nerve, the same pathway involved in that ancient gill-closing reflex. According to his research, when you hiccup, you're not malfunctioning. You're running a subroutine that's been sitting in your nervous system since before your ancestors had a spine that curves the way yours does now. The diaphragm spasms. The throat snaps shut half a second later. That delay, that specific two-part motion, it's not random. It's the same motion a fish uses to clear water from its gills, still wired into you, with nothing left for it to actually do.
Here's where it gets stranger. This isn't something you developed. You were born with it. And not at birth, before it. Ultrasound studies have shown that fetuses hiccup in the womb, sometimes dozens of times a day, starting as early as the second trimester, before a single breath of air has ever entered their lungs, before there's any water to clear, any airway to protect from anything at all. It's not just humans either. Dogs hiccup, cats hiccup, most mammals do, especially when they're young. Puppies and kittens hiccup far more often than adult animals, the same way human infants hiccup more than adults do. The reflex is strongest exactly when an animal is closest, developmentally, to that ancient transition out of water.
Premature babies hiccup constantly, sometimes for what seems like no reason at all, for minutes at a stretch. Doctors used to treat it as a minor curiosity. Some researchers now think it might not be pointless, that it could be the nervous system quietly rehearsing a motion it inherited, with no real use for it anymore, but no way to simply delete it either. In 1922, a man named Charles Osborne started hiccuping and didn't stop for 68 years. Doctors tried everything they could think of. None of it worked long term. He lived his entire adult life hiccuping every few seconds, right up until one day in 1990, it simply stopped on its own, as mysteriously as it began.
Most hiccups last minutes. His lasted a lifetime. And even his case never fully explained why the reflex refuses to fully switch off. Every species that carries this reflex is carrying the same fragment of the same transition, a signal built for gills, running quietly in bodies that have never once needed gills to survive.
So why hasn't evolution just deleted it? That's the part scientists still don't fully agree on. The leading theory is the simplest one. The reflex is evolutionarily ancient, wired deep into the brainstem, in a part of the nervous system that's expensive and risky to rewire. Evolution doesn't clean up old code just because it's no longer useful. It only removes something if keeping it actively costs you. And a hiccup, as strange as it is, doesn't cost much. A few uncomfortable seconds, rarely more. Not enough evolutionary pressure to erase 400 million years of wiring. But there's a second theory that complicates things. Some researchers have noticed that the hiccup reflex shares neural circuitry with the suckling reflex in infants, the same reflex that lets a newborn coordinate breathing and swallowing well enough to nurse without choking. Under this theory, the hiccup isn't just leftover code. It might have been quietly repurposed a second time, borrowed by a completely different survival function millions of years after gills stopped mattering.
Neither theory has been proven. Straus himself has been careful about that in his published work. The phrenic nerve pathway is well documented, but the exact evolutionary reason the reflex persists, rather than simply fading out,
is still an open question. What's rare here isn't the reflex. It's how much of your own evolutionary history got left sitting in your nervous system, doing almost nothing, waiting for you to notice. Think about what that actually means next time it happens to you. Your diaphragm spasms, your throat snaps shut, and for that half second, your body isn't malfunctioning. It's reaching backward through 400 million years, running a motion built for a version of you that breathed water, had no lungs, had no voice, wasn't even close to human yet.
You don't remember any of that. You couldn't. It happened to something so far back in your lineage it barely resembles an ancestor at all. More like a distant signal, passed down through every single generation between then and now. None of them ever dropping it, none of them ever needing to use it for anything. And it's still in you. Not as a memory, not as a thought, as a reflex, sitting quietly in your nervous system, waiting for absolutely nothing in particular to set it off. Most of what connects you to that history disappeared a long time ago. This didn't.
So the next time it happens, mid-sentence, mid-meal, at the worst possible moment, you'll probably still reach for water, or hold your breath, or ask someone to scare you. None of that will really be about stopping it. It'll stop on its own, the way it always does, the way it has, every single time, for every creature that's ever carried this reflex. What won't stop is the reflex itself. It's not going anywhere. Evolution had 400 million years to remove it, and never did. Not because it forgot, but because there was never quite enough reason to. You are, in a very literal sense, still wired like something that used to breathe underwater. Most days, you'll never think about that. And then for half a second, completely without warning, your body will remind you anyway.
Maybe that's worth sitting with for a second. Not fixing it, not timing your breath to make it stop faster. Just noticing that some tiny, unglamorous part of you refused to let go of something older than almost anything else about you, and never once asked your permission to keep it.